the company was doing about 100 million a year when I first started with them. 9 years later, when I retired, we were doing close to 4 billion. We did 69 acquisitions in the interim. It was doing real well when I left. Basically, I retired because I had everything I ever wanted, but I got bored real quickly. So being retired didn't work.
Welcome back to another episode of The Curious CEO. I'm Dermot Buffini, and we have a fantastic guest for you today, Mr. Pat Stone. From growing up in small town Bowman, North Dakota, to the battlefield of Vietnam, to the boardrooms of major organizations, Pat has a great story. He's a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of an experience who has an impressive track record of helping drive growth and innovation. He rose through the ranks to become president and chief operating officer of Fidelity National Financial, one of the nation's largest title insurance companies. After his tenure at Fidelity, Pat didn't slow down. He founded Williston Financial Group in 2010, building it from the ground up into a major national player focused on efficiency, technology, and a client-first approach that has redefined how title and settlement service operate. In today's conversation, we'll explore his path from his early days in the industry, the lessons from the leading massive operations of Fidelity, on what prompted him to launch WFG after retiring, and his thoughts on the future of real estate transactions in an increasingly tech-driven world. Pat, it's an honor to have you join us here on The Curious CEO today.
Thank you for having me, Dermot.
We've got a lot to dig into here today. I'm really excited to talk to you. I've always enjoyed our conversations and learned so much, and I'm excited for our audience to hear from you. But before we dig into some of your leadership principles and your story, where did life begin for you? Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in a little town in North Dakota, Bowman, North Dakota, about 1,100 people back then, and right in the southwest corner of the state. Nearest big town was Dickinson. That was 85 miles away, and at that time, that was 5,000 people, which to me was a major metropolitan area. So it was a wonderful place to grow up, even a better place to leave.
Great place to be from. And what did mom and dad do?
My dad was an electrical contractor. He did a lot of power lines to farms. He did a lot of street lighting for small towns in that area. But basically, he was an electrician.
Yeah. And what did mom do?
She took care of 3 kids and kept us on the straight and narrow.
That's good. Good job.
Well, she played the violin too, and she played in a lot of dance bands.
All right.
Which is kind of neat.
Oh, that's cool. Where did you start your career? Tell me about I know you went to junior college and then you went into the service, but why don't you talk us through that part of the story?
Well, I did a couple of years, or I did 3 years, 7 months, 19 days, and 11 hours in the Army. And when I got out, I was kind of lost, to be honest with you. And I took a couple of years to get my head together. Ended up reading a book called The Tragedy of American Diplomacy by William Appleman Williams. And he was teaching history at Oregon State at the time. And he correctly pointed out that the U.S. makes a couple of mistakes. One, we assume everybody wants what we want. And secondly, we don't admit we do everything for economic reasons. I read that book. I heard him speak once, and then I enrolled at Oregon State and got a degree in history. Tried a little grad school, didn't like it. Went to Mexico, did oyster diving for 6 months, came back to the U.S. and looked for a job, found a job as a title examiner trainee. And that's how I got in this business.
I forgot about the oyster diving.
That was a wonderful experience. The only problem was we would shuck the oysters. A kilo of shucked oysters got $1.50. This was in 1975. Anyway, $1.50 is what it cost me to live in a little town in Santa Cruz. I was very comfortable, very healthy, pretty happy, but I woke up one morning and decided it probably wasn't a career. So I came back to the U.S.
So you worked your way up in the title industry. You started at ground zero and worked your way up to the top of the house.
Well, what happened there was I spent some time as a title examiner trainee. My first wife didn't think there was much of a future, so she talked me into becoming a stockbroker, and I worked on Wall Street for a couple of years. Did not like it, to be honest with you. This is before they invented the word fiduciary. It was a little bit, wasn't very appealing.
The Wild West.
So I went back into the title business and been at it ever since.
And you ended up being the president's chief operating officer of Fidelity Title, where you took it from, where was it when you started your career with them, and where did you leave it?
Well, the company was doing about 100 million a year when I first started with them. Bill Foley made me president and chief operating officer in 1995. The company was doing 400 million and basically break even. 9 years later, when I retired, we were doing close to 4 billion. We did 69 acquisitions in the interim. It was doing real well when I left. Basically, I retired because I had everything I ever wanted, but I got bored real quickly. So being retired didn't work.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second. But I'm curious about, a lot of people listen here, they got a small business, they're working for themselves. Maybe they got 10 members, team members. Maybe some folks on here have got a couple of hundred or big businesses. But at one point you were leading, I think it was like 30,000 employees.
30,000, yes. Yeah, 30,000. It was pretty much a full-time job.
As I've gotten to know you and I've watched you in your current endeavor with WFG and I've watched how you lead, which is also a combination of like you're leading from the front, you're leading from the business goals, you're very pragmatic, but I've also watched you engage relationally and bring people along. And that's what really inspired me to invite you on here, because I admire that so much. And I think even today, that's more important today from a leadership standpoint. So how did you maintain this growth of a company to such a behemoth and still stay connected and lead people in a meaningful way where you're connected to them?
Well, the interesting thing is that somewhere along the line, the light came on, and I decided that the key to success was communicating effectively with people. And in order to communicate effectively with people, they got to believe that you actually care and are engaged in what they are doing and what they're thinking and what they care about. I actually enjoy the relationship with my employees. People say, "Why are you still doing this? You're plenty old enough to retire." And I say, I'm doing it because I enjoy the relationship with the people, and I learn something every day. I learn something new every single day, and that keeps me excited, keeps me energized, and I thoroughly enjoy working with people.
Yeah, it shows, and your people love you. How do you get that to cascade down, then, that philosophy of like, there's only so many meetings you can be in, there's only so much, time in the day, but how did you have the leaders who report to you, how did you teach them your philosophy? How did you get them to interact with other folks knowing the full well you're not going to be in the room?
Almost everybody that works wants to be successful at what they're doing. And so if you can connect with people and have a common goal and they realize that common goal benefits them as well as you, then they'll listen to you and they'll engage with you and they'll tell you what they're thinking. Again, it's all about communication. So many times communication is superficial. It follows a pattern of what people have been told to say. The reality is everybody knows something you don't. And if you take the time and effort to talk to them, you'll learn. And if you'll learn from them and they realize that you're learning from them, they'll learn from you. You got to break down this artificial barrier where people think you have an agenda that doesn't include them or they're not a part of. And you need to be realistic enough for them to realize that you're being honest and that you actually care. If you do that, then they'll buy in and you'll benefit because you'll learn something from them. They'll work harder and you're in it together.
Well, how do you go about breaking down these barriers? Because like, look, you're the big dog, you're the big boss. People love you, but at the same time they're kind of like, hey, my paycheck depends on this. My family's livelihood depends on this. How did you go about breaking down those like boundaries? Those walls?
You talk to people, you ask them questions, and you listen. And you listen to what they say, and people will give you an opportunity to peel the onion or to open up the bottle, if you will. If you're listening to them and talking to them, you will be able to find a way to connect with them. And if they feel that you're sincere and you legitimately care about their success, they'll be more vested and they'll engage to a higher degree. And the reality is, if you can get a team working together, you win. If you can't, you lose.
Mm-hmm. How did you handle it? How long would it take you to find out you had an onboard terrorist, is what I call it, like a team member who's like, they're saying all the right things, they're showing up, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed? Because you're a very intuitive guy. How did you deal with those folks where you're like, yeah, you might have the saying all the right things, but I don't think you're entering into the spirit of it?
Well, usually they'll say something to somebody and it'll get back to you. You will hear an echo in the organization from things they're saying and doing that's not consistent with what they're telling you. And then you have a conversation with them and you'll know real quickly in that conversation if this is going to be successful or not. The reality is people that don't engage with you, even after you've tried a couple times to be open and honest with them and they still don't engage with you, you're wasting your time. It's not going to happen.
How much of this is innate for you? Like, where did you learn this philosophy? Is it just kind of like how you are as a human, or did you have mentors or people modeling this to you, or was it a combination? How did that come about?
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Again, I approach every day as a learning experience. And consequently, I find that I'm still learning a lot, even at my tender age. So I think it's really a matter of paying attention. Never assume that you know everything. Never assume that the person you're talking to doesn't know as much as you do. Even if you're the president of an organization and they're just starting, I'll guarantee you they know something you don't know. And if you can figure out how to connect with them, you'll find out what that is. The more you connect with people, the more they're interested in what you're saying and what you're doing, and more engaged they are in helping you accomplish your goal.
Mm-hmm. You did pretty well in life, and you did pretty well at running a huge company, but it sounds like you retired for about 4.5 minutes. So can you tell me about, I know your good wife, she kind of got you to get back to work here. She was like, I'm not sure if you're built for retirement, but can you talk a little about that? Because you did reach the promised land. You had more success than the average person will ever experience in their life. How did that transition come about?
Well, a couple things happened to me. And to be really honest with you, I quit drinking 33 years ago. I don't watch TV, or I shouldn't say that. I didn't watch TV up until the pandemic. I guess I started watching a little bit then. But I read a lot, but I get bored real easy if I'm not doing something new and engaging with people. Being retired was horrible. I mean, I did a lot of nonprofit work. I was chairman of the Art Museum in Santa Barbara, chairman of the foundation at Oregon State University, did a lot of things like that. But it was, and those things are rewarding, but it's not the same as building something. It's not the same as creating something. It's not the same as engaging with people with a joint purpose.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't very happy. And my wife sat me down one time and said, "You got to find something to do. You're driving me crazy." So I decided I was on the board of one of the largest title companies at the time, the second largest title company. I was on their board and during the financial crisis, and I was sort of stunned, to be honest with you, at how the companies in the title industry reacted to the financial crisis. Let's be real honest. I think most of them felt kind of like, well, that's a realtor or lender problem. We just need to adjust our expenses and be here. Well, the reality is it provided an opportunity to come at this business a little differently than before. And again, like I talk about engaging with people and getting them to open up and be honest with you, it's the same thing with clients. If you actually engage with your clients, in our business, if you talk to realtors and lenders, you will find out that they have ideas about how things can be done, and you can do them better than they've been done by your competitors. And also, if they feel like you're a part of their process, they're more inclined to engage with you and actually share things with you. Dermot, I say this a lot, and people think I'm kind of silly, but when I started in this business, it took on an average of 45 days to close a deal. Now it only takes 45 days to close a deal. And this is the craziest business because we are regulated in individual silos and very, very closely regulated. Lenders are regulated closely. Realtors are regulated closely. Title companies are an insurance company, and you're regulated state by state. Unfortunately, there's very little interaction between the entities, and the regulatory environment creates barriers. So we spent billions of dollars on technology, but we haven't taken much time out of the process, and it's not a very efficient process. Now, having said that, the average buyer and seller of a home, they are wondering what's happening, what's going to happen next. So we saw an opportunity to create a company where we make sure they know what's happening. We have a product called My Home, and it's statusing software that people can engage in and be very well aware of what's happening and what's going to happen next. Encourage all our people to talk to their clients at all times to see if there's anything we can do to help them do what they do better and to be a part of their process. And so it's kind of fun because we have made progress. We have increased, I think, the efficiency of our operation and our interaction with people. I sure wish, with all the talk about taking time and cost out of real estate, that somebody would sit down and look at the regulatory environment and say, hey, well, that's where the problem is. And it is. That's where the problem is.
Yeah. Bureaucracy it doesn't move fast, and it finds more of it. And that's why I tip the cap to you and people in your industry because, and where it is highly regulated, where you're trying to be an entrepreneur, but you got to play by the rules. If you don't play by the rules, it gets very expensive, and still that commitment to do what's right by the customer. So you came out of big business, and then you started your own gig, which is Williston Financial Group, which is WFG and the title company. And you started that in 2010. Is that right?
Started our first day of business was January 2nd, 2010. Yes.
Fantastic. And you guys are doing great.
Yeah, we've done very well. We're a national company now. We have about 1,500 employees. We make a nice profit. We have zero debt. We're putting a lot of time, effort, and money into technology with the idea of making that process more understandable and more efficient. And trust me, there is tremendous upside to increase efficiency, especially if we can get some cooperation among the regulatory agencies.
Yeah, well, yeah, and also, my mother used to say, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. I can tell you that the people I've met who are connected to you, some of them I've known a very long time, knew them before you. And I'm like, man, you've got a real high quality team, and you attract a really great group of people. And that's a testament to you and Steve and the team. So that says a lot.
Well, and the thing is that we listen to them. I joke by saying this, but I'm sort of serious. And that is, I kid around and say I get yelled at by somebody at every level in the company every day. And that may not be exactly the case, but I will say this. I get input for almost every aspect of the company, and sometimes it's critical, and that's okay. If someone cares enough to tell me what they're thinking, I'll listen. And if I can't explain to them why we're doing something, then maybe I better examine it and change it.
I love that. I love that. You've dealt with some tough times. They say tough times don't last, tough people do. What's your approach at dealing with tough seasons and help people through a tough season? And the reason I want to bring this up is because you went through, you were in Vietnam.
Yeah, it was, I'm a better man for it. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but a couple things happened, I think, that helped me. One, I had a father that was a highly decorated World War II veteran. At the Tet Offensive, the hill I was on, we got hit 55 straight days in a row. And you get worn down a little bit, and you get into kind of a bad place. And I took an R&R right after the Tet Offensive, and my parents had an apartment in Hawaii. So I went to Hawaii. I get off the plane. My dad looks at me, tells mom to go shopping. And she said, Pat just got here. And he said, no, go shopping. So she figures something's up. He says, what do you drink? I said, I'll drink anything. He got me a bottle of vodka. He got a bottle of Jack Daniels. The only time in my life he ever talked about World War II was when we were sitting there getting drunk together. And he never talked to my brother or sister about it. But we sat there for a couple hours of drinking and telling war stories. His were much better than mine. We're kind of winding down. Now, this man is 95% disabled from World War II, but nobody knew because he never complained. Always had a smile on his face, right? Mm. So we're kind of winding down. He says, hey, Pat, I got a question for you. And I said, what's that, Dad? And he says, you're okay, right? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you're not injured or wounded or anything, right? And I said, no, I'm fine. And he said, well, I got another question for you, Pat. And I said, what's that, Dad? And he says, so does your brain still work? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, do you feel like you're still as smart as you were when you went in the Army? And I said, yeah. He says, okay, I got a final question for you. And I said, what's that, Dad? He says, so why are you feeling sorry for yourself?
Wow.
I sat there for a minute, and I looked at him, and I started laughing. I got up and gave him a hug, and he let all the air out of the balloon. I mean, it was really an interesting thing. He saw what my issues were, and he helped me get on top of it. And I got to thinking, because of that incident, and because I was kind of curious watching a lot of people and how they reacted to it, I got to thinking a little bit about philosophy. Got very interested in the Stoic philosophers, especially Epictetus. And he had a very famous saying, that is, understand what you control and what you don't control. Don't spend time, energy, and emotion on things you don't control.
So true. So true. And let's be honest, like you and your dad had it too, right? That's like nobody knew how to spell PTSD.
Yeah.
How much, can I ask you, and totally cool if this is beyond the realm, but I'm curious about, at what point did you decide, I'm not drinking anymore? I think alcohol to me is something that has been fun, and I'm Irish and all that, but I've also seen where it's kind of like a silent assassin in people's lives simply because it's so acceptable, it's fun, it's this, that, and the other. But like, what was it that led to you kind of going, no more?
Well, it was mostly, I had hepatitis when I was in Vietnam, and then my thyroid stopped, so I couldn't metabolize alcohol. So the doctor said, you need to stop drinking. And I said, okay, I'm done. And he said, "You're not listening to me. You need to stop." And I said, I don't drink anymore. And he started yelling at me, and he wanted to put me in AAA or something. I don't know what he wanted to do, but he wanted to, or, whatever, double A, Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, "I don't need it. I don't drink anymore." And it was actually very easy. And, I quit basically for physical reasons, but it was the best thing I ever did. I haven't woke up in the wrong bed in 33 years. That's a bad joke. Let me start over. Let's put it this way. I have a full day and my brain works the whole day, and I am able to read, think, and enjoy life. And I became a lot less judgmental when I quit drinking.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't care who it is or where they're from. Everybody has something
That's right.
that you can learn from or enjoy, right? I mean, we're all human beings and we all live this life, and it's wonderful to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And when tough seasons approach, like because I can't think of anything tougher than going through that as a young man and dealing with that, and you got your buddies and what you guys went through. But what's your mindset towards tough seasons, and how do you help other people get through it?
Well, I don't feel stress anymore. I haven't felt stress, since Vietnam, to be honest with you. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier about the Stoics and understanding what you control. And I a lot of times I'll tell people, I say, okay, you're worried about that, but can you control it? And I know. And I said, well, what can you do? They'll say no. And I say, well, what can you control? Work on what you can control. Don't spend time and emotion on things you can't control.
Yeah, I think I needed to hear that today, Pat. No, that's so great. It's so great. And, one thing I've noticed as well is that you haven't just had this, incredible career, incredible success, big company stuff, and like all the bells and whistles that come with it, but how you talk about your wife, how you talk about your family, how have you managed to keep those things in balance? I know you mentioned it to me before at dinner, so I'm setting you up for it, but you have a simple philosophy and focus that you keep in order.
It's health, family, job, right? You can't be there for your family or for your employer if you're not healthy. If you're not happy with your life, you won't do a good job at work. So, I mean, it's pretty easy, health, family, job. But I just get such a kick out of the kids and the grandkids. I do have to compete with 7 grandkids now for my wife's attention. So that's a challenge. Watching the kids, I mean, best thing ever happened to me was having daughters. And I understand women a lot better. I also, raising kids, you understand life a lot better. And then you get to enjoy life as they discover life. So it's wonderful.
Well, just in saying that, I think, if I'm around Pat Stone and he's a guy who's like, I'm not getting stressed out by this. We're going to go do our best. We're going to control what we can control and not worry about what we can't control. I can see how that cascades down into the rest of the team. Well, hey, if he's cool, then I'm cool. And then I think as well, the example of that's what I'm doing a bit, but over here, I'm going to take care of my health. I'm going to focus on my family, and I'm going to take care of my job. I mean, I just love the simplicity of that focus, but I'd imagine that's had a tremendous impact on your team and those who work with you.
Well, the one thing about, and I think this will resonate with everybody, the one thing that gives you credibility is how consistent you are in your approach, in what you say and how you behave, so having a very simple, direct philosophy like that gives you a lot of credibility because it's easy to be consistent. I believe in it and I live it.
Yeah, you do. You show up. I spoke for you guys. I was fortunate enough to go out and speak at your conference that you held in Houston. I had a great time speaking and with the audience, but I had an even better time hanging out with your team and watching you interact with them. So I can tell you it's true.
Well, we're all, we're a team, and you used the appropriate word. And, Steve Azonian has done a great job of leveraging that too. We call ourselves greatest of all teams. And it's just, we're all in it together, and we approach it that way. And anybody can say anything. Your status or your job doesn't determine your ability to have input.
Yeah. So I'm curious about, as you look at the world today, and I would love for my daughter, Kate, who's 23 next month, and my son, Jack, who's 19, I would love them to meet you. And hopefully that happens someday. But if you were talking to them today as they're going through college and they're looking at AI and the world, and it looks like the whole world is on fire, as it always does, but it's even more intense for these kids. What would be your best advice for somebody now who's who's entering the next stage of their life as a young adult, going through college and then ready to start a career, what advice would you give them?
Well, I always tell people, I should say, I ask people, what are you curious about? What intrigues you? What stimulates you to try to discover or read or find out about something? I spoke to a bunch of MBA students a couple of years ago, and they said, what's the key to success? And I said, well, that's a good question. And if I knew that, I'd be a multi-billionaire. But I will tell you what I think is important, and that is follow your curiosity, because if you're curious about something, it intellectually engages you, you're much more inclined to go further with it, have fun at it, and invest more intellectually in it and time-wise in it, and it'll result in something for you. If you're just chasing money, I've known so many people that have put time and effort into getting a career that they think is going to reward them with money. And almost always they get discouraged, angry, or bitter, even if they make the money.
Yeah.
So life is about enjoying it and waking up every morning wondering what's going to happen and how much fun you're going to have doing it. Right. Well, I think follow your curiosity. It's not a game of status. It really isn't. I mean, unfortunately, we put too much effort on status. It's more about feeling good about what you do and being interested in doing it again tomorrow.
Well, I think that's, sounds like a setup, but it is the curious CEO, and that seems like a great word to end on. I will tell you, you've been extremely successful around extremely successful people. But at the end of the day, as you say, it's not a net worth statement that's going to validate your life. It's the fact that your family and those grandkids and your wife love being around you and you love being around them. And here you are getting ready for the next season. So I think that mom and dad would be very, very proud of you today if they had seen what not only you've become, but also just the influence you have. And I'm just super thankful to have met you, to have this opportunity with you. And I'm hoping to have many, many more conversations with you down the road if you're up for that.
Dermot, I am, and I would echo your comments. I'm very glad to have met you and have enjoyed our interaction. I enjoyed the fact that you're very curious about almost everything. And I mean, it's fun to be around people that are interested in life and are curious about it.
Well, Pat, till next time, thank you so much for taking the time today. I think our folks are going to love this. There's so much gold in this interview today. Just thank you for being you. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me, Dermot.
Thanks a million.